There are two simple steps towards this, and two very common mistakes many parents as well as speech therapists make when identifying which stage of GLP a child is in. I'll tell you that mistakes in the end. Let's start with the first step in identifying which stage of NLA is your child in. Now I'm using two terms, GLP and NLA, interchangeably. So you might be wondering, what is it? So GLP means Gestalt Language Processing, which is a way of learning of some neurodivergent minds. NLA, or the natural language acquisition, is a theoretical model or the stages given by a few SLPs to understand how Gestalt learners progress in their language development. The original SLPs who talked about NLA actually called it natural language acquisition to emphasize the point that Gestalt learning is in fact natural, it's not pathological, it's not a wrong way of learning. The first step is to first collect a comprehensive language sample. This is SLP term. But for parents, what you need to do is from today, or if you watch one of my older videos, you might already be doing this, which is to have a language log of whatever your child is talking currently. This means you writing down all the words, sentences, scripts, dialogues, songs, movie dialogues, cartoon dialogues, your language that they have learned and they're repeating, dialogues from teachers, from schools, from therapy centers, whatever your child is talking, I want you to write it down. Write so as to at least get 50 to 100 utterances. What utterances means? It's something that is said at one point. For example, if your child says woohoo, that is an utterance. If your child says, can we go to the playground? That whole thing is an utterance. So it doesn't matter if it's word, phrase, sentence, dialogue, whole script, rhyme, if anything, the length does not matter. But if your child said it at one point of time, that is one utterance. This is actually like the biggest step. And I recommend you take at least 1, 2, 3 days, sometimes even a week, to collect all the phrases that your child is talking. Do not make the mistake of only taking 5 phrases, 10 phrases, 15 phrases. No, you need 50 to 100. Now, I am going to do a live analysis with you. I have here a list of 70 sentences said by a child. Let's analyze each utterance one by one. Now let's do the first one. Ready, set, go is probably a play routine that was taught by adults and the child has remembered it as a whole. So this can come under a complete gestalt. The second one, blue, is just one word a child has learned. So this can come under an isolated word, or maybe this is something our child has even learned analytically. Because if you remember from my GLP video, a child who's a Gestalt language learner can also have some analytical learning. And if you see, there are a lot of words here, one words our child is using meaningfully. We are marking red for whole gestalts, blue for isolated words. Where am I getting these words like whole gestalts, mitigations, isolated words? Is from our stages of natural language acquisition. If you haven't watched this video, please go and watch it. I've made a complete video on the stages and supports for each stage, and then come back. Now, the fourth sentence, George likes dinosaurs, is probably directly out of Peppa Pig. So, this is a whole gestalt. Now, the word mine is also an isolated word that our child has fully understood and is using. Now, the sixth sentence gets interesting because this is a complete sentence and it doesn't seem to me like it is heard from somewhere like on cartoons or someone told it. So, I'm going to assume that this is a original sentence. Now, you as a parent or a therapist are so used to the child's speech, so you will know if this is a sentence you have taught them already or if they have heard somewhere on cartoon. So I have not heard this sentence anywhere, so I am going to mark it as a self-generated sentence by our child. That is, he made up the whole sentence. Same way, now good morning teacher is also probably a gestalt. More is an isolated word our child has learnt. Chutki wait for me is also a gestalt from Chota Bheem. Now, I want a blue one can be an original sentence. I want a blue one can also come under a mitigation. Maybe in speech therapy, you are working on I want phrase. So now the child has learned the phrase I want and they're able to combine this part separately and intermix them, like I want chips, I want red ball, I want the blue one. So this is most probably a mitigation. I will revise mitigations with you one more time. Mitigations are phrases that are broken down from whole gestalts as the child learns and understands what they are repeating. So if this is a whole sentence, a mitigation is part of the gestalt. So if you have previously taught them, I want chips, and now your child is able to say, I want the blue one, your child is mitigating. So now this is a open your mouth, ahaha, is from Johnny Johnny Rhymes, and it is a whole gestalt. Wheels on the bus go round and round is also another whole gestalt. Everybody line up is probably told by teacher at school, another whole gestalt. Balloon is a single word our child has learned meaningfully. Faster is another single word. Another point I want to tell you here, if you have been taking your child to therapy and if you're doing a lot of flashcard teaching, you will find lot more single words like names of animals, names of colors, shapes, birds, fruits, vegetables. They will all come under isolated language or language that has been learned more analytically. Sometimes when a Gestalt language learner is taught a lot of one words, this whole sample will seem like it has one words. You have to keep in mind, just because your child is having a lot of one words doesn't mean that they are more actually in stage 3. What happens is a lot of children will use one words as gestalts because they have been taught only one words or they've only been taught labeling. So this is why you should actually work with a therapist, your speech therapist, who is very familiar with how Gestalt language development happens, so they can do this analysis with you and teach you. The 17th sentence is very interesting for me as a speech therapist, and I will consider this a self generated phrase because I have not heard this phrase, I have not said this phrase, or I don't think anybody has taught the child this phrase and they are probably saying it on their own. And it's a little complex sentence because they are using a superlative, a comparative word here, bigger. Now, the 18th sentence, Dora cake chahiye, could be a mitigation from Doraemon cartoon. Go away can possibly be another gestalt the child has learned to protest, similar to mine or more or no. Now, in this way, I have scored the first 50 sentences, utterances said by the child, and you can see there is definitely a mix of language from all the levels. But the pinks, that is the whole gestalts, are more. One thing we shouldn't do is we shouldn't just calculate a percentage and say that your child is in stage 1, because you can see there's a lot of self generated speech also. For example, like push me, I need help, the dinosaur is eating the car, I am making a giant castle. So this will, if you just say that a child is only in level 1, you're completely disregarding all the self generated speech that is also coming up. So we can say that a child's language has more gestalts and they're having a lot of stage 1 utterances. But our child is also having a lot of mitigations. They're able to combine words in different ways and use it according to the situation. Our child is also having a lot of isolated words. They're understanding individual word meaning, and there are some mitigations as well as some isolated words. Overall result is our child is a predominant Gestalt learner with emerging flexible language. Now, the two biggest mistakes SLPs and parents make in identifying which stage of NLA a child is in. The first one is thinking that a long sentence or a long utterance means the child is in a later stage and they have good grammar. Most often, even the longer phrases, longer sentences can be remembered and they were heard at some point and your child remembered them. For example, one of my kids, she says, "Oh my goodness." Now, this we can think it's like a 3-word sentence. So, we will think it's a phrase and that it goes under original phrase. But it's still a gestalt. Even though it is 3 word long, it is still something the child heard in one of the cartoons and remembered. Another example, if your child says, "What if a tree grows on your head?" This looks like a very long sentence, but this is also an example of something one of the kids heard in one of those YouTube video, what if YouTube videos. Just because of the length, we cannot say it is original phrase, original sentence. It can still be a gestalt. The second mistake is to be very strict in the stages. The whole thing of this GLP, NLA is still being researched. It's still being refined. We don't have a Bible for GLP yet. You have to understand that even when we say a child is predominantly, let's say, in stage 2 or stage 4, they could still be having a lot of gestalts from stage 1. They can even say a few original phrases that belongs in stage 4 or 5. So what we are really looking for is what is the most common type of utterances in the language sample. This is something I've personally observed with the kids I see, is that a child can be in stage 3, but whatever new language they hear, it still goes through those levels of level 1, level 2, level 3 of processing, and then comes to stage 3. So you can think of it like a factory with a conveyor belt. Let's say it's making potato chips. So the raw potatoes that is just harvested is all the language that's being given. So when the potatoes are washed and peeled, that's stage 1. And then they're cut and they are again washed, that's probably stage 2. So you have to think that whatever language comes to your child, whatever they hear, whatever they find relevant in their environment, they are processing it, they are understanding it, breaking it down, and taking it through these stages. So this means that you have to support with a lot of raw potatoes or lots of language input. So you can't just focus on level 1 input or level 2 input. You also have to give them a lot of gestalts, because gestalts is how they learn. When I say you have to give them a lot of gestalts, what I mean is you have to give them a lot of modeling, speech and language modeling, so that they can understand, get relevant language input that they can process and break down and understand the words and then make their own sentences. Actually, another parent brought something to my attention, that in one of my old videos, I said, write down all these things and I'll tell you what to do with them, but then I forgot to tell you that. So if you have any questions, or if you feel like anything that I have said is not very clear, feel free to leave it in the comments. I will definitely make videos explaining it further.